witnessed in peaceful Nagpur city as the controversy surrounding the tomb of Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb escalated. The investigation now seems to be pointing to a pre-planned conspiracy. Policemen who were injured during those riots, they say that the violence appeared far from being spontaneous. Maharashtra Police's cyber cell has now identified a Facebook account which was allegedly operating from Bangladesh, and that account, whoever the owner of that account was, they were threatening to incite large-scale riots in Nagpur just days before what we saw earlier this week. Several of those accounts have now been shut down, but the moot question that needs to be asked, and it's something that has still not been answered fully well, is why does a Mughal emperor who died more than 300 years ago continue to be a hot topic of debate in 21st century India? Why is it that Aurangzeb continues to rile up politicians? It mobilizes some folks to actually come out on the streets, protest, eulogize, and venerate him to the extent that they're even willing to damage public property in his name and raise concerns over people's safety. The Maharashtra Chief Minister has come down hard on those trying to take law into their own hands.
त्यांनी पोलिसांवर हल्ला केलेला आहे त्यांना कबरीतने खोदून काढू सोडणार नाही. बाकी सगळ्या गोष्टी क्षम्य आहेत, पण पोलिसांवर हल्ला हा क्षम्य नाही. त्यामुळे त्यांच्यावर ही स्ट्रिक्टेस्ट कारवाई आहे. ती कारवाई करून.
So now there is definitely emerging a political link to the violence that we saw a couple of nights ago in Nagpur. Now, Fahim Khan, who's the one person who's been arrested, he's a local leader of a party called the Minorities Democratic Party. It's a small, registered and recognized party. He was identified as the alleged mastermind. He was arrested yesterday. Now, this 38-year-old leader, he's set to be the city president of the Minorities Democratic Party. He even contested the 2024 Lok Sabha election from the Nagpur constituency, which, of course, Nitin Gadkari won from that constituency. But the police believe that there is video evidence to suggest that Khan gave a provocative speech on that day, on the 17th of March, which directly contributed to the escalation of tensions. Not only was that speech provocative, but he also went on to falsely claim in that video that verses from the holy book were written on a chadar and that chadar was burnt. That turned out to be completely fictitious. The other person who's been identified is a man named Syed Asim Ali. He's also been identified as a prime accused. He's not been arrested yet formally. He too is said to be an office bearer of the Minority Democratic Party, the same political party. Now, the link between these two men, between Ali and Fahim Khan, are being ascertained by the police. This man, Ali, was arrested for the murder of a Hindu leader back in 2018. In fact, he was in jail until last year and is currently set to be out on bail. Asim Ali has praised Aurangzeb in social media posts in the past, and his posts are also under the scanner of the Maharashtra police. Now, apart from the cyber cell, now the anti-terror squad of the Maharashtra police and the NIA too has been roped in to investigate this case. The National Anti-Terror Organization is assisting this probe because preliminary pattern that's being noticed is almost like a Kashmir-like modus operandi. The NIA believes that stones were brought in trolleys. You in fact even heard Devendra Fadnavis say that in the assembly, that there were dozens of trolleys full of stones that were brought in before the violence. Those stones made their way to rooftops and the police were attacked from the bylanes as well as from the rooftops by the pelters. Eyewitness accounts also suggest that thousands had gathered there after organized mobilization. You cannot suddenly turn up a mob of 500, 1,000 or 2,000 just like that in a spontaneous fashion. There were petrol bombs, sharp-edged weapons, all of which were used in the attack. The modus operandi, investigators believe, is similar to what was seen in Kashmir prior to 2019.
अभी तक 80 लोगों के ऊपर हम वो कस्टडी में हैं और 11 उनके अलावा 11 लोग माइनर। कुछ ऐसा नहीं है, वो सारी चीज़ें देख के हम लोग उसके ऊपर कार्रवाई करेंगे कितना किस चीज़ में गिरते हैं। चीफ एक्यूज, सी एक्यूज इज एक्यूज दोज हु हैव engineered it, they are part of this, and if it is part of some conspiracy, that is also being established, and this is part of the investigation.
So amid this storm, the Archaeological Survey of India has today covered parts of Aurangzeb's tomb. It's in a place called Khultabad in Sambhajinagar district. There were tin sheets that were placed on both sides amid demands for the complete razing down of this structure. it is an ASI protected monument. Therefore, they will have to approach the court. The state government or the district administration will have to approach the court to get this ASI protection lifted, and only then can it be raised down, if indeed that is the intention. But the district administration has also made the decision to put a barbed wire fencing on both sides of the structure so that people are restricted from going there. A circular fence could also be installed around this tomb. There is heightened CCTV monitoring of the structure as well, and now a strict log is being maintained of those who are visiting this tomb. So the idea is to try and be very careful with the security of the place to ensure that this doesn't become some kind of a shrine or monument where people start going and paying obeisance.
किसी भी आक्रांता को महिमा मंडन नहीं करना चाहिए। आक्रांता का महिमा मंडन का मतलब देशद्रोह की नींव को पुख्ता करना, और स्वतंत्र भारत ऐसे किसी देशद्रोही को स्वीकार नहीं कर सकता है जो भारत के महापुरुषों को अपमानित करता हो, उन आक्रांताओं का महिमा मंडन करता हो, जिन आक्रांताओं ने भारत की सनातन संस्कृति को रौंदने का कार्य किया था, बाहर बेटियों की इज्जत पर हाथ डालने का काम किया था, हमारी आस्था पर प्रहार किया था, उसे आज का ये नया भारत स्वीकार करने को कतई तैयार नहीं है।
I want to go across for a straight face-off between Radhika Khera, spokesperson of the BJP, and Varis Pathan, spokesperson of the AIMIM party. Varis Pathan, let me start with you first. You know, the moot point that needs to be answered, I'll get to the specifics of the violence and the people who've been arrested, their political links, etc. in 1 second. But the moot question that needs to be answered, Varis Pathan, is why is a tyrant, a brutalist, an invader being eulogized by some quarters? Why is he being celebrated, venerated? Why are people going to his grave, paying obeisance? It is this which is the root cause of what we saw, the violence that we saw in Nagpur a couple of days ago.
Well, Zakka, no Indian Muslim sensible person would ever glorify Aurangzeb or the Mughals. What have we got to do? What has happened 400 years back? What has the Indian present Muslim got to do with Aurangzeb? I don't understand that. And yes, violence is condemnable. Nobody has a right to take law into their own hands, and we condemn all kind of violence. Whatever has happened in Nagpur, we condemn that. And now what we see is that some 8 people from the Vishwa Hindu Parishad and the Bajrang Dal were arrested, produced before the magistrate, and within few hours they were granted bail for 3,000 rupees. Whereas on the other side, some 51 people have been arrested from a minority community. These are Muslims. They are still languishing in jail. When we expect the police to do impartial inquiry into the entire issue, and whosoever is guilty, see Zakka, I don't say whether this side or that side, whoever is guilty for creating this violence must be brought to book, and law must take its own course. But here the moot question is, why did it all started? We have been saying time and again to the Maharashtra Chief Minister that there are several people in the state who are trying to create a hatred atmosphere in the state by giving provocative statement. Just prior to 2 days before this Nagpur incidents, the MLA from Hyderabad, Raja Singh, came to Pune in Maharashtra and he gave a provocative speech there. Why no FIR against him? Why is he not stopped? Before that also some BJP ministers, they gave provocative speech like
saying you started by saying that no
so all this
Indian
led to
Muslim,
this.
All this led to this. No, 1 second. Just hear me out. You started off by saying that no Indian Muslim should go to his grave. Akbaruddin Owaisi is your party leader, MLA from Hyderabad, the brother of your party leader,
I said,
Owaisi. He went there in
Zakka, I
March
said
of
nobody
2022.
glorifies. Nobody glorifies, no Indian Muslim glorifies Aurangzeb. Now going to a grave, how does it become an offense? It is an ASI protected monument. Remove the ASI tag. Nobody will go there. But kindly remember, Zakka.
What did he do?
Advani
what did
ji
he
went
go
to
to
the grave of
for? I mean,
Jinnah.
what do you normally do
Advani ji,
when you go to the grave of a person?
so offer.
See, when you go to the place
you
where a
offer
person
your,
is buried,
you offer your prayers.
What do you normally do?
Harm? Anywhere you can go. Graves are so many graves in the country. We can go offer prayer. But Advani went to Jinnah's grave. Why did he go there?
No. So you're going to pay respects, right?
Went to Bahadur Shah Zafar's grave.
You go to the grave of a dead
then nobody
person
got insulted.
to pay
Nobody
respect,
got.
right, Varisab? Varisab, you go to the grave of a person to pay respect.
We go there.
Not to show hatred, na?
Any person who has died, see, you cannot erase history. they ruled the country. He has died. So if he was there and if he goes there, what? But from India to Pakistan, you go there, offer your prayers. What does that say? Why did you go there? Why Advani went? Prime Minister Modi goes to Bahadur.
So Radhika Khera, let's leave
Nobody
the, who's paying
but here the thing is,
who's paying respects.
just finish in 10 seconds.
But the moot point is
here I was the provocative
this
statement.
cannot be
The Chief Minister of Maharashtra
this cannot be the reason for violence.
I can't understand.
The law and order collapsed in Nagpur 2 nights ago, and that is squarely
I can't
on
understand what
the
you're saying,
state
Zakka.
government, on the state police. It's the place from where the Chief Minister hails. That's on you. That's on your government, not on Mr. Pathan's party.
Zakka, what has happened in Nagpur was not just a protest. It was an orchestrated attack on law and order. There was a deliberate and pre-planned assault which was executed by radical elements which have been continuously shielded by the Congress, the MB alliance, and the party of the gentleman sitting here, Mr. Owaisi's party. We've seen the kind of statements that have come from Abu Azmi. We've seen the kind of statements that have come for the Congress leaders. And they have this big, huge fan club, Aurangzeb fan club, and they have been now, the Maharashtra cyber cell, like you said, has exposed that there are social media accounts which have been traced to Bangladesh, which have been used to incite these riots. Now, the point is that who are behind these people and who wants to destabilize Maharashtra? We, as any government in power, will not want to destabilize the state. Why would anyone want riots in the state unless you're from the Congress party and your intent is like 1984 to slaughter every Sikh and create havoc in the country? That is what the Congress feeds on and their alliance partners feed on. Bhai ko ladana bhai se, jaat ko ladana jaat se, dharam ko ladana dharam se. But that is not how the Bharatiya Janata Party operates. And we also cannot forget in this incident what all has happened. 33 police officers were injured using petrol bombs, kulhadis. Now those petrol bombs and kulhadis don't come up suddenly. It was very clear that this was all happening. And the way that the women police officers have been attacked. And not one person from the Congress party, whether it is Rahul Gandhi or the Uddhav Sena, they have come out to even call out these radical elements.
And we've seen the kind of by saying, provocative statements were made by the likes of Abu Azmi. Provocative statements were made by the likes of Nitesh Rane also. There's no action that's been taken against him. He's a sitting minister in the Maharashtra government.
If you have people glorifying Aurangzeb, what do you expect that the others will sit silently? It's going to happen. So that should not have started. Please tell me, if questions are being asked today about Nitesh Rane, why was no question asked about Imran Masood? Why was Abu Azmi not thrown out of the party? Why was no action taken against Imran Masood? Did Rahul Gandhi question why Abu Azmi was not thrown out of the party? Did he take action against Imran Masood? And action had a reaction. It should not have happened. But what action was taken against those people who actually committed the crime? Because this will never happen, because it's the same Congress and the opposition that opposed the removal of Article 370 and sided with the Tukre gang. And that's what they're doing today, just for their appeasement politics.
So the provocation is there from both sides. There are Muslim leaders also who are making provocative statements. Abu Azmi, the whole thing started after the movie Chhawa became successful. And Abu Azmi said, how the movie is presented him is wrong. He was a great hero, so on and so forth. Again, I come back to that point. Why should anyone want to hero worship Aurangzeb? I mean, Shivaji's army had dozens of Muslim army commanders. Why are they not being celebrated? Why are they not being hero worshipped? Why should the person who invaded and killed tens of thousands of people in Bharat, why should he be eulogized and hero worshipped?
Zakka, the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Devendra Fadnavis, on the floor of the assembly just 2 days back said that there was anger in the mind of the people after watching the movie Chhawa. He clearly stated so on the floor of the assembly. His deputy CM Eknath Shindeji says that if you want to learn history, kindly go and watch the movie Chhawa. Now, are these not provocative statements? One says that if because of Chhawa movie there is an anger, and the other says that okay, kindly go and watch the movie. So, are these not provocative statements? Are those statements not provocative? If you want to,
let's be reasonable. Let's be reasonable. That was basically that there is a certain portrayal of Aurangzeb in our history textbooks, in our popular culture, which the movie has corrected to some extent is the view from the BJP and the right-wing ecosystem. That's what the Chief Minister and the Deputy Chief Minister were referring to. They didn't say you should come out onto the streets and protest. and throw petrol bombs and stones at police? They didn't say that.
You may have your opinion about that, but we have an opinion of what they said.
Can I
I
please
don't
respond to
believe
him?
what you say. I don't go on what you feel about that. We know why did they meant and what did they meant by saying that. So now let us go ahead with the debate. Now the second thing which I want to bring it before, this is Zakka. Nobody is interested in Aurangzeb. Now since 17 days, since Abu Asim made a statement, who's the BJP's B team, he gave point to the BJP. Now since 70 days of the Maharashtra budget session, everything has gone to shambles. The BJP government was totally cornered in this budget session. They were to be cornered on the Pune rape case, on the Munde murder, on the law and order deteriorating situation in the Maharashtra. So they have diverted the mind of the people from the basic issues completely. Now everybody is talking about, okay Zakka, let me tell the BJP spokesperson, if they feel that digging out the grave of Aurangzeb will establish the economy of a country, I will come along with them. Let us dig it together, let the grave be dug up and take it away. By digging up the grave or by wrecking up the issue of Aurangzeb, will the economy stabilize? Will the 2 crore unemployed youth get employment? Will the persons who have lost so many lakhs of crores of rupees in the share market, will they get their money back?
Okay,
Will we become a trillion economy?
Let
No!
Radhika Khera respond.
Will there be a development in the country if we get dug up the
There's a fair point there that you have. This is in the same fortnight where the state government of Maharashtra, the chief minister said that we are not increasing. This was one of your prime poll promises, that we'll increase Ladki Behan from 1,500 rupees to 2,100 rupees when we come back to power. And the chief minister is on record that we cannot raise this thing because we don't have the monies. We have to do an audit. Varis Pathan is right when he says, is this not a convenient distraction? Bring about some ruler from 300 years ago and say, you know, he was bad and he was this and he was that. And then you conveniently forget what is important here and now.
First of all, the chief minister did not say that this was never going to happen. There are certain things that we need to audit and sort out, and which we will, and then the time and due course of time, everything will be given as promised. It is a guarantee of Shri Narendra Modi ji, which will be fulfilled like all his other guarantees are. We've seen how for 2.5 years a Chori ki Sarkar run by the MP Alliance had drained Maharashtra, and which is why we are getting in new investments to build up lots of things so that we have money to ensure what we promised to the women of Maharashtra they will get. Having said that, there were two things that Mr. Varis Pathan raised here. That at this time, why is suddenly during the session Aurangzeb being taken out of the grave? Well, we didn't take him out of the grave. Swara Bhaskar, who is a very well-known politician from Sharad Pawar's NCP, whose husband also contested Maharashtra election. We've seen how she's been behaving like a radical element during the Maharashtra elections. And she went on when she started it. Abu Azmi ne tal se tal milai. Imran Masood gave another thing. The Bharatiya Janata Party leader, show me one Bharatiya Janata Party leader who started this. Did we do that? Everybody who's saying something is now a member of the Bharatiya Janata Party. I'm sorry, Swara Bhaskar and these people and such radical elements are not members of the Bharatiya Janata Party, and they will never be. And they will never be B, C, D.
No, but Nitesh Rane is a member of the Bharatiya Janata Party.
He responded. Did he start this?
Mr. Raja Singh is an MLA from
Zakka, he did not start it.
Statement.
Can I please complete? He did not start it.
That was his statement.
सर मैंने आपके बीच में नहीं बोला था, मुझे कंप्लीट करने दीजिए. भारत में टुकड़े होंगे इंशाल्लाह कौन बोलता था ये मैं नहीं दूंगी. Let me complete. So like I said, Nitesh Rane did not start it. You have to also call out the people equally who started it. Condemn them. Bring them out in the front. Where have we seen the opposition or the Congress or the Rahul Gandhi or any one of them condemn their leaders or their people like these Swara Bhaskar? No one has. And when our Deputy Chief Minister talks about going to watch the movie to know about history, well, it's a fact, Zakka. When I was in school, when you were in school, we've only read about the Mughal history. The ecosystem ensured that we only read history either of the British or the Portuguese or the Mughal Empire. When did we read about our leaders, our heroes, whether it was Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj or Sambhaji Maharaj? We did not read about them. We did not know about them. We are bringing changes, and when we bring the real changes to the system, then they cry, "Ho ki arey history badal gayi." We are not changing.
We'll leave it at that. I want to thank both Varis Pathan and Radhika Khera for joining us. We'll see how this story plays out in the rest of this remainder of the budget session of the Maharashtra Assembly, and also out on the streets of cities in this state. Let's now move on from Maharashtra to Karnataka, which of course is seeing a severe cash crunch to the extent that the government is finding it difficult to meet some of these guarantees. But at that same time, the state of Karnataka, the government of Karnataka, in fact, is all set to go ahead and approve a massive salary hike for MLAs, ministers, the chief minister. The state government is likely to table this bill in the ongoing budget session of the state assembly. What the bill proposes is a salary hike by at least 50% for MLAs, ministers, etc. This comes even as the state's liabilities have grown. It was confirmed by the chief minister when he presented the budget just a few days ago. So much so, the chief minister also said it's difficult to find the revenues to fund some of these guarantees that the Congress had promised. It also comes weeks after the state decided to get, in fact, the state assembly decided to get massage chairs and recliners at the Vidhan Sabha because legislators needed to relax. So the question that begs to be asked is, isn't this again a classic case of misplaced priorities? All right, CNN News 18 has accessed a copy of this draft bill. It's in the draft stage now, but we're given to understand that in the next few days, before the end of this week, when the assembly will be adjourned sine die, this bill will be introduced and perhaps passed in the assembly as well. This is what the draft bill says, that the chief minister's salary needs to be increased to 1.5 lakhs from the current 75,000. That's a straight doubling of the salary. Ministers' salaries to be increased to 1.25 lakh from the existing 60,000 rupees. MLA salaries to be increased from to 80,000 rupees from the existing 40,000 rupees. Again, a straight doubling there. MLA's pensions to be increased to 75,000 rupees from 50,000 rupees. Additional pension to be increased to 20,000 rupees from the current 5,000 rupees. Now, it's not just the salaries. There are hikes in perks as well if the assembly were to pass this bill. Ex-MLA's medical allowance, for example, to be increased to 20,000 from 5,000. Constituency level travel allowance to be hiked to 80,000 from 60,000. Train and air tickets, these are annual train and air tickets that are given to MPs and MLAs, to be hiked to 3.5 lakh from the current 2.5 lakh. Chief ministers and ministers' guests allowance to be hiked to 5 lakhs from the current 4.5 lakhs. The house rent allowance, HRA, for ministers' accommodation to be hiked to 2.5 lakh from the existing 1.2 lakh. And the salaries of state ministers to be increased to 70,000 rupees from the existing 50,000 rupees. And the state minister's house rent allowance to be hiked to 2 lakh rupees from the existing 1.2 lakh rupees.
The justification is their expenditures are also going up along with other people. The common man is also suffering, and MLAs are also suffering. So that is why, based on that, I think the recommendations have come from MLAs or others. So that's why the decision has been taken by Chief Minister.
All right, I want to go across to my colleague Harish Upadhyay, who's broken this story and is now joining us. Harish, so, at a time when the state is literally broke, and we saw evidence of that in just the budget that was laid to the House a few days ago, at a time when the state government is finding it difficult to meet some of these guarantees, what is the justification for this massive salary hike to MLAs and ministers and the chief minister?
Well, Zakka, cutting across party lines, especially off camera, whether it's a BJP MLA, a Congress MLA or a JDS MLA, saying that we need this kind of money just to ensure that we help people in the constituency. Many of them saying that this is something that is very much essential for a first time or a second time MLA. It's not that they would be spending 2.5 lakh rupees on a house rent, but that money will go elsewhere, helping people in the constituency come to their office seeking help. That's the justification that's coming in. But two problematic areas here. Remember, in 2022, the Basavaraj Bommai government had in fact raised the salary of MLAs and ministers and chief minister. Back then, the law minister had said that this 50% jump will ensure that for the next 5 years, we will not require a salary hike. But we are already seeing a salary hike happening in the 3 years after that revision that happened in 2022. The second problematic area here is that there was a proposal in front of the Karnataka government to set up an independent committee that will look at the expenditure of MLAs, ministers, chief minister, speaker and others, and then decide the quantum of hike that should be given. But this proposal was rejected by the chief minister. What we are also picking up is that in the business advisory committee meeting that happened at the beginning of this session, one of the BJP MLAs, Arvind Belad, had suggested that the government form a committee and then go in for a hike. That was rejected by Chief Minister Siddaramaiah, and the government now deciding to go for a hike that is more than 50%. And what we are also understanding is that this is something that the government will do just before the session gets adjourned sine die. That's the plan right now. This is something that had happened in 2022 as well. The opposition did not, back then the Congress and the JDS did not oppose it. This time round as well, we might see the opposition MLAs walking out, but on the front of it, pretty much all of them, whether Congress MLAs, JDS or BJP MLAs, all of them believe that there is a requirement for a salary hike.
I mean, it's tone deaf, isn't it? At a time when private sector, even IT companies, many of which are based in Bangalore, are talking about, single digits hikes, an impending slowdown, etc. MLAs and ministers are proposing a 50% salary hike. We'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, Harish, for joining us here on Brass Tacks. I want to move on from that end to another end of the spectrum, as it were. A year-long protest by farmers at the border of Punjab was dismantled by the police late last evening. Both the Shambhu and the Khanori border protest sites were cleared by removing the barricades, the vehicles, and all the temporary structures that had been put in place there, which had blocked the highway for a lot of people leaving Ludhiana and trying to enter into Haryana and eventually to the national capital. Several farmer leaders, including Sarwan Singh Pandher and Jagjit Singh Dalewal, were both detained in Mohali while they were on their way to the Shambhu protest site after they met with a central delegation that was led by Union Agriculture Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan. There were ministers from the Punjab government as well. Despite criticism from both the Congress and the BJP, the Punjab government has defended the eviction of the farmers from the protest site, saying that the prolonged closure of both the highways had severely impacted the industries and businesses that are based in Ludhiana. Remember, Ludhiana West goes to a bypoll in the next few weeks, and it's an important bypoll for the Aam Aadmi Party. And so the opposition there, both the Congress and the BJP, are saying it's for political and electoral reasons why the Aam Aadmi Party government there has removed these protest sites.
पंजाब और हरियाणा के शंभू बॉर्डर पर पिछले एक साल से भी ज्यादा समय से चल रहा किसानों का पक्का मोर्चा आखिरकार हटा दिया गया है। पंजाब पुलिस ने एक बड़ी कार्रवाई करते हुए शंभू बॉर्डर पर चल रहे पक्के मोर्चे को हटा दिया है। उसे लेकर अभी कार्रवाई लगातार जारी है और जो किसान नेता थे उनको भी हिरासत में लिया गया और जो लोग शंभू बॉर्डर पर मौजूद थे उन्हें पुलिस ने हिरासत में लेकर पटियाला जेल भेज दिया है। आपको तस्वीरें दिखाने की कोशिश करते हैं कि इस वक्त अभी हालात क्या हैं शंभू बॉर्डर पर। तो यह जो आप देख रहे हैं पंजाब वाली साइड की तस्वीर नजर आ रही है आपको। ये आप बोर्ड देखेंगे तो राजपुरा लुधियाना की तरफ जाने वाली सड़क यानी अंबाला से आने वाला रास्ता और पंजाब की तरफ जाने वाला। यहाँ पर आज से पहले कल शाम तक आपको बड़े बड़े टेंट नजर आ रहे थे, बड़े बड़े टीन के शेड नजर आ रहे थे जो किसानों ने बनाए हुए थे, जिन्हें रात पुलिस ने जेसीबी मशीनों के साथ तोड़ दिया। लेकिन जो सड़क पर आपको अभी भी ट्रैक्टर ट्राली नजर आएंगी, लेकिन यह ट्रैक्टर ट्राली सब खाली हैं। इन्हीं में घर बनाकर कमरे बनाकर पिछले एक साल से ज्यादा समय से किसान बैठे हुए थे, जिन्हें पुलिस ने यहां से उठा लिया। पुलिस ने अपनी हिरासत में लिया। किसान नेताओं को मोहाली से और बाकी किसानों को यहां से शंभू बॉर्डर से पुलिस ने अपनी हिरासत में लिया, जिन्हें आज पटियाला जेल भेज दिया गया है। तो यह तस्वीर पूरे मोर्चे को हटाने के लिए अभी भी ऑपरेशन लगातार जारी है। दूसरी तस्वीर आपको जो दिखानी चाहते हैं, पंजाब और हरियाणा के शंभू बॉर्डर पर एक कंक्रीट के पहाड़ खड़े किए गए थे। रास्ते को पूरी तरह से बंद किया गया था। मेरे सामने वाला पासा, अंबाला वाला पासा, घग्गर नदी का जो पुल है, इसे पूरी तरह से बंद किया गया था। यह देख सकते हैं कि मशीनों के साथ इस शेड को तोड़ा जा रहा है, बैरिकेड को हटाया जा रहा है।
So why did the state government clear these borders now? After all, it's taken a year of the farmers having that sit-in protest, as you heard from Nupin Brar a moment ago. Arvind Kejriwal's Punjab visit that happened a few weeks ago, there was feedback from the Ludhiana industrialists to the top AAP leadership and the upcoming crucial bypoll in Ludhiana West constituency. All of this seems to have been the trigger now for the Bhagwant Mann government to take this drastic action of clearing both the farmer protest sites in Punjab. Like I said, they'd been sitting there, they'd been squatting there for over a year, and suddenly this move now, both the BJP and the Congress are alleging, is purely for electoral reasons for the upcoming Ludhiana West bypoll. So to say that industrialists, business folks who are based in Ludhiana had told the top AAP leadership that the party won't get votes in the upcoming Ludhiana Assembly by-poll if the farmer protest sites at Shampu and Kanori borders continue, since the same was causing massive losses to their businesses, and therefore to try and appeal to those traders and industrialists, the Maan government has gone ahead and dismantled these protest sites. Now, they have a different take. The Punjab government, sources in the Punjab government have said that they waited for an opportunity which came their way when farmer leaders went to Chandigarh last night to attend a meeting with the three union ministers Piyush Goyal, Shivraj Singh Chauhan and Prahlad Joshi over their continuing demands, chief of which, of course, is that they want MSP, minimum support price guarantee, to their crop. As per central government sources, the union ministers who went for the farmers' meeting in Chandigarh had no inkling that these farmer leaders would be detained right after that meeting. In fact, the union ministers were surprised to see a huge deployment of police when they came out of the meeting. The union ministers learned of these detentions when they were on their way to the airport to return to Delhi. The ministers had talked about the next day to the meeting with the farmers in yesterday's meeting, but now, of course, that hangs in the balance because many of those farmer leaders are now currently in custody.
देखिए, ये चीफ मिनिस्टर जो है पहले उसने मीटिंग बुलाई और गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया और पंजाब के मिनिस्टर्स वहाँ बैठे, इसको विश्वासघात कहते हैं। किसी को अपने घर बुलाकर उसको अरेस्ट कराना, इससे बड़ा विश्वासघात क्या हो सकता है, और धोखा किया है पंजाब के लोगों के साथ।
Most of the farm unions have a demand, and those demands are to the central government, right? Now they should be protesting somewhere where center can listen to them and address their demands. Either come to Delhi or go anywhere, effectively wherever they think which is concerned with the central government.
Moving on here on Brass Tacks, the Indian government has raised concerns over Elon Musk-owned X and its AI chatbot Grok. Recently, there were some controversial responses that Grok had been producing. Grok has become more popular in the country because of its direct and sometimes sarcastic replies to people on the microblogging site X. Its use of Hindi expletives and slang is also under the scanner. The Ministry of Information and Technology has asked the microblogging platform for a response. This comes at a time when there is a legal battle that is already underway here in India. In fact, Musk and his companies are suing the government of India after Elon Musk-owned X filed a legal petition in the Karnataka High Court in which they have argued that the Indian government's use of Section 79, Clause 3, Subclause B of the IT Act and the Sahyog portal creates an unlawful and unregulated censorship of what people are saying on X. The Indian government has made it clear that the law of the land will apply in all of these instances and to all of these social media platforms, including X. Our Pallavi Ghosh breaks down what this story is about and where things stand now between Musk-owned X and the government of India.
We have been noticing a lot of traction on Grok, which is the new AI-enabled search engine as far as the social media platform X goes. There's been a lot of hangama over ChatGPT and, of course, as far as the other social media platforms are concerned. What government sources have told to us is that as far as Grok is concerned, there are certain concerns which have been raised that there is easy usage of, say, some Hindi slang, some of which may be considered derogatory in nature. And that is where the government had decided to step in. That is why the government wants a certain amount of regulation, and it has got in touch with the social media platform X to raise this concern that how Grok can actually be misused. And it's not just about Grok, it's also about ChatGPT, it is also about other social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, even WhatsApp, and of course the big one, which is X. What government sources are telling us is that a certain amount of self-regulation is accepted, but at the end of the day, it's all about following the law of the land. The dilemma is that on one hand, we talk about freedom of speech and expression. We also talk about how these social media platforms and Groks and ChatGPT are becoming increasingly popular and also inevitable. On multiple platforms, the Prime Minister has admitted this. He's also trying to come out with some kind of an encouraging policy as far as usage of artificial intelligence or AI is concerned. But I remember one word of the Prime Minister that very often the problem with these AI-generated search engines like Grok as well as ChatGPT is that the right hand may not know what the left hand is doing, or the right hand says something and the left hand says something which is completely in stark contradiction. So how much seriously should you take them? That's the big issue. While the government has been focusing on self-regulation, that people should understand the laws of the country, the sensitivity of the content, and how it can be easily impressionable as well as manipulated, especially since a large number of young people are using these kind of platforms. Therefore, it is up to you, it is up to these social media platforms as well as its users to exercise discretion. And that is where the government says we don't want to step in. But recently, X has taken the matter to the Karnataka High Court, where they have raised the point that the government is using the IT Act to clamp down on them, or that is that they are conducting censorship. Well, government sources are saying that this is absolutely incorrect. There's no question of censorship. You do have the freedom to use these kind of platforms and search engines like ChatGPT or Grok in your sphere of work and even otherwise. But you also have to understand that this is all about self-regulation, or if you want to call it self-censorship. You should understand how much it should be used, in which way it should not be misused, because there are a large number of people who may be impressed by it, and especially a large number of young people. So self-regulation is the mantra. But we also have an IT Act in place, which essentially talks about controlling those, or regulating, I would say, those content which are considered to be derogatory, abusive, or sexual contents which are considered to be abusive, something which can threaten the national integrity or the security of the country. And there's nothing wrong if this IT Act is used to bring about a certain amount of regulation.
All right, talking about the US and Musk and so on. Badr Khan Suri, he's an Indian origin postdoctoral student, researcher at the Georgetown University in Washington in the United States. He's now been arrested and will likely be deported to India. According to a statement from a Georgetown University spokesperson, Suri obtained a US visa to continue his postdoctoral research on peace building in Iraq and in Afghanistan. He was arrested outside his home in Virginia Monday night. He's been accused of spreading Hamas propaganda and close connections to a known or suspected terrorist. Suri's detention is the latest in a string of immigration-related arrests that the Trump administration says they're just beginning to ramp up. It started with a student named Mahmoud Khalil, who was a green card holder, who was part of the anti-Israel pro-Hamas protests at the Columbia University. And that led to the detention, the deportation of certain individuals. Mr. Suri is not the first from India who could likely be deported. Just last week, Ranjini Srinivasan, another student at Columbia University, had self-deported to Canada before federal authorities showed up at her residence.
Badr Khan Suri, a student at Georgetown University in the US and a former student at Jamia Millia Islamia in New Delhi, has been detained in the US and he faces deportation. The Department of Homeland Security has accused him of supporting Hamas, which the US has considered and declared to be a terrorist organization. It has accused him also of anti-Semitism. He's been accused also of actual ties to Hamas, but of course no evidence of this has been provided as yet. A White House statement released to Fox News says that simply that Secretary of State Marco Rubio had rendered him deportable. The move to deport Badr follows a new and controversial new decision taken by the Trump administration to deport any foreigner found to be supporting Hamas as the government sees it. This would be considered harmful to US foreign policy. Badr Khan was arrested outside his home in Roslyn in Virginia on Monday night, and he's now been detained in Alexandria in Louisiana. Badr Khan is married to an American citizen originally from Gaza, of Palestinian origin of course, where she worked earlier with the foreign ministry in Gaza. She has not been arrested. Badr Khan is in the US on a student visa. He has been with the Al-Walid bin Talal Center for Muslim-Christian Understanding, which is a part of Georgetown University and its School of Foreign Service. He'd been also teaching a semester there on majoritarianism and minority rights in South Asia. He has a PhD in Peace and Conflict Studies from the Nelson Mandela Center at Jamia. The university, Georgetown University that is, has said in a statement that it was not aware that Badr Khan had engaged in
any illegal activity and says that it had not been provided a reason for his detention. So this detention now comes, as we've seen, close after that of Mahmoud Khalil, and he was detained at Columbia University for his participation in pro-Palestinian protests. Khalil is challenging that deportation order in court, as will Babar Khan Suri. His lawyer has said in a statement that the problem now is not with his client but with the country seeking to deport him. In neither case have we seen any evidence yet of specific involvement in any criminal activity related to Hamas or within the US. So the big question hanging over these detentions and the moves to deport really is whatever happened to the First Amendment of the US Constitution that guarantees free speech, and this is going to be debated certainly now in one court after another.
Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has spoke with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in an hour-long phone call after his recent conversation the day prior to that with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Trump said that the discussion aimed to align both Russia and Ukraine's requests and needs to try and put an end to this war, which has been going on for the last 3 years now. Trump, in fact, called it a very good talk. He said that both countries, Russia and Ukraine, are very much on track. Zelensky described the conversation as positive and substantive, thanking Trump for the productive efforts made in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, where US and Ukrainian officials have been meeting. He confirmed Ukraine's willingness to accept an unconditional ceasefire and end the strikes on civilian infrastructure. This followed a 2.5-hour phone call between Trump and Putin on Tuesday, where Putin said that there would be no immediate or full ceasefire in Ukraine for 30 days. Instead, the only thing that he committed to was not attacking energy infrastructure in each other's countries.
President Donald Trump is describing his hour-long conversation with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky as a very good one, adding that he believes the discussions to end the war in Ukraine are, quote, on track. He also said, quote, much of the discussion was based on the call made yesterday with President Putin in order to align both Russia and Ukraine in terms of their requests and needs.
The leaders agreed Ukraine and America will continue working together to bring about a real end to the war, and that lasting peace under President Trump's leadership can be achieved. The two leaders also agreed on a partial ceasefire against energy. Technical teams will meet in Saudi Arabia in the coming days to discuss broadening the ceasefire to the Black Sea on the way to a full ceasefire.
During Trump's call with Vladimir Putin on Tuesday, the Russian president also agreed to temporarily halt attacks on energy infrastructure targets in Ukraine, but stopped short of agreeing to a broader ceasefire. Russia and Ukraine exchanged aerial assaults just hours after. Zelensky has said that Putin's words are at odds with reality when it comes to Russian operations on the ground.
So earlier this week, we had a 2.5-hour-long phone call between President Donald Trump of the United States and President Vladimir Putin of Russia. There was great hope and anticipation ahead of that phone call that there will be an immediate temporary ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia, the first of its kind in the last 3 years since this war began. Unfortunately, what we had at the end of it was a limited pause on the hostilities, particularly those that are focused on energy infrastructure. Mr. Putin has not agreed or acceded to the request to have a full-fledged 30-day ceasefire, as was articulated by both the Ukrainian side and also by the American side. That agreement, of course, happened in Jeddah last week in Saudi Arabia. So where does the Russia-Ukraine war go from here? What is Putin playing at? And more importantly, did President Trump overplay his hand in the hope that President Putin would readily agree for this 30-day ceasefire? Let me now go across to somebody who has followed both Ukraine and Russia from very close quarters. Ambassador Kurt Volker is former U.S. Special Representative for Ukraine negotiations in the first Trump term. He was also U.S. Ambassador to NATO in 2008 and 9. Thank you very much, Ambassador Volker, for joining us here on CNN News 18.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
So what did you make of the phone call? It went on for an awful long time, 2.5 hours. There was a lot of expectations sort of built up ahead of that call. But in the end, did you feel that it was a bit underwhelming?
Actually, I was kind of pleased with the way it went. If you take a step back, there was a lot of speculation in advance of that call about things that Trump might agree to that would be very unfair and unfavorable for Ukraine, such as recognizing Crimea as Russian territory, which it's not, or such as agreeing that Russia can have the territories that it currently occupies or even more territory. He didn't agree to any of that. Now, he did put out the request for an immediate 30-day ceasefire, which Ukraine has already agreed to, and Putin did not agree to that. Not surprising at all. Putin believes he can still achieve his maximalist aims, which are to eliminate Ukraine as a sovereign, independent state. He wants to eliminate a Ukrainian sense of national identity. He wants to have a government in Kyiv that he has a say over. So he is completely unchanged in terms of his goals, which is why he doesn't want to agree to a ceasefire. He wants to keep fighting and keep pressing this. President Trump, I think, by pushing this, at least got Putin to say that he would agree, did not yet agree, but would agree to a limited ceasefire on energy infrastructure. That's a start. And I think what President Trump wants to try to do is start somewhere and keep pressing and keep pressing.
So, Ambassador, you said earlier on that Putin's ambitions, his grand plans, have not changed, and he believes he can use the battlefield advantage to try and press that further. Are his plans still as grand, or is it, much more narrower, which is why he's refused to agree to this 30-day ceasefire, which is to try and oust the remaining Ukrainian troops out of Kursk? So is his ambition, at least for the moment, a little more limited than what you just articulated?
No, it's not. And in fact, immediately after the phone call, the Russians released a map of Novorossiya, which includes not only the 4 provinces of Ukraine that they claim to have already annexed, but also additional ones, including the cities of Kharkiv and Odessa and the province of Dnipropetrovsk, which goes right up to the city of Dnipro. So their designs are maximalist still. They also said after the call that they had demanded an end to any further military support to Ukraine, which of course would leave Ukraine completely defenseless if that happened. And interestingly, President Trump was asked about this and said, no, we didn't talk about that. So the Russians are clearly manipulating and pushing and pushing. I don't think his grand designs have changed at all.
So why then is President Trump seemingly in such a hurry to get the ceasefire going?
Well, I think he's sincere when he talks about the loss of life. He sees every week thousands of young people are being killed on the front lines in most brutal ways, brutal warfare. He wants to see that end. He also believes that this is a distraction from other issues in the world that he wants to pay attention to. I think getting a peace in Europe would also be salutary for the Middle East, and I think he's thinking of it that way. He would like to get a normalized U.S.-Russia relationship after there is a peace, so that we diminish the risk of conflict between the U.S. and Russia. So he's got a lot of reasons why. And it's also his nature. When he says he wants something, he wants it immediately. And he talked about it during the campaign, said he would get this done in a day. So now it's very high on his priority list. And if I can add, Zakka, I think that the important thing here is not that we're going to change Putin's objectives. He will always have those objectives. Mm-hmm. We have to change his calculation as to whether he can achieve them. And right now, he still thinks he can by fighting and delaying and negotiating ad nauseum, raising other issues. We have to get to a position where he looks at his economic situation and the military situation on the ground and concludes that it's only going to get worse, and therefore he should settle for something now. That's what we have to get to.
So I was just getting to that. What would it take to get Putin to agree to a ceasefire?
I think the economic pressure is the most important. He is already burning through foreign exchange reserves. He doesn't have a lot left, maybe enough for the rest of this year. Oil prices, if they continue to go down, will starve what goes into the state budget. He is spending about 40% of the state budget on this military effort right now. That's not a sustainable level. And because of the combination of the war and sanctions, inflation is running very high in Russia. I would argue that it is well over 20%, despite what the official figures say, because we know interest rates in Russia are pegged at 21%, also extraordinarily high. And there is a shortage of components and goods that go into Russia's military effort and that go into other things in the economy. So they are running short on time if they keep going the way that they're going. I think Putin is hoping that he can flip this to his advantage in the short term. If he can't, and we're looking at the same situation towards the end of this year, he may be the one who feels that, okay, it's time to have a ceasefire.
So then explain this to me. Putin's clearly playing for time. He doesn't want to do this in a hurry. Trump wants to do this in a hurry. But you're saying the reality may actually be the opposite, that Putin may not be able to stretch this for beyond the rest of this year. And for Trump, he might actually get a better deal by not rushing through with it. Is that not apparent?
I completely agree with that. And that is the paradox of this. President Trump wants to get this done. And so he is trying to be as open to dealing with Russia as possible, hoping that he can convince Putin to do it. Putin thinks that he can keep getting more. He thinks that, okay, if I accept something now, I'll miss out on what I could actually gain. Trump will give me more. Ukraine will give me more. And what we have to do is show him that that is a wrong calculation. Right now, Trump has not spoken much about sanctions on Russia, about going after Russian financial institutions and their access to the global financial markets. He hasn't leaned in on Russian energy. So he's dangled a lot of carrots, but he hasn't shown a lot of stick to Russia yet because he's trying to get this done quickly. I think the more he shows more stick, the more I think Russia is going to realize that, okay, it's time to make a deal. But we're still not at that stage yet. We don't see it yet. It'll take more time this year.
So very quickly on what may those sticks be, because, Trump also is a famously impatient man. I mean, if this is going to drag on for months, he's going to run out of patience pretty quickly. So what may the sticks be that America can sort of, flash at Putin?
Yeah, I would say that the sanctions that the Biden administration put in place on its last Friday in office, which go after Russian oil and gas exports, including vessels that the Russian, it's called a shadow fleet, that Russia uses to export its oil, sanctioning anyone who is dealing with any of those vessels, sanctioning any banks that are touching finances that deal with any Russian energy transactions, so-called secondary sanctions, to implement the primary sanctions. These are things we have never fully implemented and we could do. And I think if the Trump administration were to just let Treasury loose, just go and implement what's already on the books, it would start to have a significant impact on Russia's finances.
So I want to sort of expand this, broad base it to beyond just the Russia-Ukraine war. Would it be a correct assessment that in Trump's worldview, he looks at great powers in the world? Obviously, America is great. He came back to office on this whole "Make America Great Again"
It's
theme.
great again now, yeah.
but he views China and Russia as these great powers, and he doesn't necessarily care as much for the rest of the world. Certainly doesn't care for Europe as much. Maybe India, he sees as a rising power, as an ally in this fight against China. But do you think that Trump, eventually would want to cut a deal separately with Putin and with Xi Jinping, and he looks at the world as these are the three mega powers in the world, and the rest of them sort of follow the new rules that these three powers are going to lay down?
Yeah. Yes, I think so, in the sense that he wants to prevent conflict between these great powers. A global war. He talks about World War III and a massive war, something he definitely wants to avoid. He recognizes that they are not our friends, that they are adversaries and competitors, but he doesn't want that to devolve into open conflict. And so I think he does look at it that way. He doesn't see anyone else as in a position to really challenge the United States, only those two really. And so he wants to manage that. You're quite right to mention India in this, because he does look at India as a rising friendly power as compared with China or Russia. And then finally, I think when he always thinks about the economy. And so if he figures that he can stabilize the relationship with Russia and China so we are not in open conflict, that will create economic opportunities for the United States and for the U.S. economy, which he very much wants to do.
And very quickly, as we conclude, so where does that Trump worldview, and we're going to be having to live with this for the next 4 years, where does that leave a country like India? Because we have our own problems with China.
Yes.
Right now, there is a power differential, and India's view is that, the longer we sort of prolong this, the more we go into the 2030s and the 2040s, that power differential will eventually, work out in favor of India. And in that interim, we need the United States to be on our side, but Trump may not necessarily view it that way.
Yeah, I would give India the same advice I give to all of my European friends as well, which is don't make any assumptions about what Trump is going to do or not do. Do your own assessment and analysis and homework as to what you think needs to be done and what you're capable of doing, what should be done, and then be proactive and make proposals and try to do things on your own, but then reaching out to work with the United States. That is the most effective way to engage President Trump. And I think that there's a lot of openness to that, both from Europe, but certainly from India. So I wouldn't be concerned and worried. I would be positive and proactive.
All right, Ambassador Kurt Walkers, it was a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much for joining us here on CNN News 8 in Brass Tacks. Thank you.
It was great to be with you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Freed Ukrainian prisoners of war celebrated on Wednesday after Russia and Ukraine each agreed to release 175 captured troops. Moscow said it freed an additional 22 wounded Ukrainians as a goodwill gesture, following a phone call between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. But just hours after that call, in which a deal was reached to pause attacks on energy infrastructure, both Russia and Ukraine accused each other of violating the new agreement. Moscow said Ukraine hit an oil depot in southern Russia, while Kyiv said Russia had struck hospitals and homes and knocked out power to some of its railways. This all came on the same day that Trump had a phone call with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky that Trump described as very good. Before their conversation, Zelensky said Moscow's continued attacks showed its words did not match its actions, and that Russia was not ready for peace. He also said that the United States should be in charge of monitoring any ceasefire.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
The hour-long call on Wednesday between Trump and Zelensky was their first conversation since an Oval Office meeting descended into a shouting match in late February.
Intelligence sharing in terms of defense for Ukraine will continue to be shared.
Later, White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt said Zelensky asked Trump for additional air defense support, and that Trump said he would help locate the equipment in Europe. She also said Trump has moved beyond a previously negotiated U.S.-Ukraine minerals deal.
We've moved beyond just the economic minerals deal framework, and we're looking at a lasting ceasefire. Right now, we're at a partial ceasefire, but again, the president is sending his highly skilled, intelligent, and experienced team to Saudi Arabia later this week to continue fighting for peace in this conflict.
Trump has long promised to end Europe's deadliest conflict since World War II. But his outreach to Putin has unnerved European allies, who fear it heralds a fundamental shift after 80 years in which defending Europe from Russian expansionism was the core mission of U.S. foreign policy. freed Ukrainian prisoners of war celebrated on Wednesday after Russia and Ukraine each agreed to release 175 captured troops. Moscow said it freed an additional 22 wounded Ukrainians as a goodwill gesture, following a phone call between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. But just hours after that call, in which a deal was reached to pause attacks on energy infrastructure, both Russia and Ukraine accused each other of violating the new agreement. Moscow said Ukraine hit an oil depot in southern Russia, while Kyiv said Russia had struck hospitals and homes and knocked out power to some of its railways. This all came on the same day that Trump had a phone call with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky that Trump described as very good. Before their conversation, Zelensky said Moscow's continued attacks showed its words did not match its actions, and that Russia was not ready for peace. He also said that the United States should be in charge of monitoring any ceasefire.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
The hour-long call on Wednesday between Trump and Zelensky was their first conversation since an Oval Office meeting